Welcome to the Body Ethos Podcast, where we're shifting the culture from sickness to health. Before we dive in, please remember that this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult your healthcare provider before making any changes to your health routine. Welcome back to another episode of the Body Ethos Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Whitmill. I'm a functional and holistic health practitioner in elevated functional health. And today I'm going to talk all about how your gut microbiome impacts your hormones, your mood, and your detox pathways. So before we get started, I want to zoom out and start with our gut microbiome. Your gut microbiome is an ecosystem of trillions of bacteria, fungi, parasites, and viruses. And ideally, they all live in harmony. And yes, bacteria, fungi, parasites, and viruses can live in harmony in the body. And when they live in harmony, your gut and your gut microbiome are responsible for producing and regulating certain hormones, aiding in manufacturing neurotransmitters, helping train your immune system, and playing a key role in detoxification. And that's why your gut is not just a detox organ, it's a signaling organ. But as I talked about before, all of this needs to work in harmony. And this is why it's really important to understand that your gut and your brain are in constant communication. Your gut and your thyroid are in constant communication. Your gut and your liver, your gut and your immune system. They're all talking together at all times. And that is why the gut is really a key signaling organ. It doesn't just communicate with the brain like a lot of us know about, but it's also connecting and talking to other organ and body systems as well. And that's why when there is disharmony within the gut, your entire system feels it as well. So let's start with your hormones, especially estrogen. Inside your gut, there is a special collection of bacteria called the estrobolome. And its job is to help metabolize estrogen, decides how much is eliminated versus reabsorbed through gut-producing enzymes like beta-glucuronidase, which we can test on stool test, that actually can reactivate estrogen in the gut. And this overall just influences how estrogen is balanced and in circulation in the gut and the body. And when your gut is healthy, estrogen follows a clean exit. But if we have dysbiosis, so imbalances in the gut bacteria, we have constipation, we have inflammation, we have something like SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Estrogen often gets recycled, not removed. And this is when we have familiar symptoms like bloating that worsens with our cycle, PMS, heavy periods, tender breast, mood swings, weight gain, especially at the hips and the belly, weight loss resistance, fibroids, endometriosis, PCOS, and other estrogen-dominant issues and symptoms in the body. And just to add another layer to this, things that are autoimmune issues like imbalances to the thyroid are also related here as well. Not only because of the inflammation from leaky gut or the bacteria in the gut, things like SIBO, which can downregulate thyroid hormone, and honestly create a perfect storm for issues like Hashimoto's. So inflammation, gut bacteria, creating more immune signaling, and an estrobolome that is completely dysregulated. But estrogen dominance alone can imbalance thyroid hormone because your estrobolome impacts how your body is creating these certain hormones and converting them. So when we are in an estrogen dominant state, we have a reduced amount of T3 and T4, which are your active forms of your thyroid hormone. And this is actually known as your gut thyroid axis. 20% of your T4 is converted to T3 in your gut. So if you have a dysfunctional gut microbiome and more estrogen recirculating, your thyroid is going to suffer. And so the key takeaway here is that if you have hormone imbalances, whether that's sex hormones like estrogen, or other hormones like thyroid hormone imbalances, your gut microbiome should be the first thing you should support. All right, so now I want to talk about neurotransmitters and your mood, because a lot of you may not know this, but the gut plays a key role in mood regulation and neurotransmitter regulation. About 90% of serotonin is produced in the gut. And your gut microbiome helps regulate not only serotonin, which again is kind of our mood and calm hormone, but also dopamine, our motivation and reward neurotransmitter, as well as GABA, which is our relaxation and nervous system safety neurotransmitter. So when the gut is inflamed or imbalanced, these neurotransmitters drop in production. The nervous system shifts into survival mode, and we have common symptoms like anxiety, depression, irritability, brain fog, mood swings. And there are some incredible studies that show this interaction between the gut-brain axis, particularly when it comes to depression, and how there is a strong link to imbalances in the gut microbiome. Studies showed that people that suffer from depression actually had different microbial patterns compared to people that didn't have depression. And there were actually common patterns among those that suffered with depression and those who didn't. And there were specific bacteria that were linked, like Prevotella, Klebsiella, and Clostridium, that were more prevalent in people that had depression. And I actually find this very interesting because on gut testing, I find that people that suffer from mood issues typically have higher levels or imbalanced levels of these key bacteria. Not only that, and this one was super crazy and cool, but fecal matter transplants. So yes, taking a healthy person or animal's fecal matter and then transferring that to another person or animal. And that's what a fecal matter transplant is. So they took this fecal matter from healthy donors that were not depressed, who had balanced moods, and they gave it to mice that showed depressive behaviors. And when the depressive mice received the healthy fecal matter transplant with a healthier microbiome, they showed a reverse in their depressive behaviors. They also did the reverse. So then they basically took the microbiome of the depressed mice and they put it in mice that were showing a balanced mood, and they actually induced depression in those other mice. So if this doesn't convince you that your gut microbiome plays a critical role in mental health, I don't know what does. And not only does it help with the production of your neurotransmitters, but these bacteria and fungi are constantly sending signals to the brain. So are parasites. And so if you have an imbalance of these issues, not only are you not producing enough neurotransmitters, but you're getting these inflammatory signals going to the brain. And this can create a cascade effect of neuroinflammation, which absolutely has been documented to influence your mood. So things like, again, depression, anxiety, OCD, irritability, brain fog, cognitive decline, all of these things are linked to your gut microbiome. And this is why your gut health truly dictates your brain and your mental health as well. So let's continue on and talk more about another big player in all of this, which is LPS, or lipopolysaccharide. This is a toxin released from certain gut bacteria, especially gram-negative bacteria. And this is very common if you have leaky gut. Again, you have SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And LPS is a toxin that can actually cross the gut barrier and enter the bloodstream. And this, unfortunately, is a common story of how a lot of people have systemic immune activation, systemic inflammation. LPS has been directly linked to autoimmunity as well as certain cancers, also disrupting the HPA axis, which is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So basically disrupting your stress response. It's been directly linked to insulin resistance, as well as type 2 diabetes and mood instability. And what's worse is that LPS crosses that gut barrier and enters into a circulation. And it literally is like a biological alarm system. Your body is on high alert at all times. And this inflammatory cascade, again, affects the brain. It affects cortisol dysregulation. It affects hormone signaling. And this is why LPS is referred to as a driver of metabolic endotoxemia. And endotoxemia is when toxins related from bacteria are creating inflammation and infection in the body. And even low grade chronic exposure to LPS has been directly, again, linked to things like type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance, fatty liver, cardiovascular disease, mitochondrial dysfunction, and mitochondrial diseases, as well as an increased blood-brain barrier permeability, leading to things like neurodegenerative issues, as well as some of those brain on fire mental mood issues that we experience it as well. So in other words, LPS tells the body to go in survival mode. And so if you have low grade LPS buildup, so toxins from gram-negative bacteria constantly releasing signals in the gut, you are going to have a huge issue with inflammation and immune signaling, which is going to keep the body stuck in survival mode. So things like healing, hormone balance, and detoxification are harder and often put on hold from a cellular standpoint because the body goes into a cell danger response and it just holds on and it doesn't allow you to shift into healing and restore mode. And so this is important because many people don't know they have this issue with LPS because it doesn't always show up as bloating. Instead, it shows up as fatigue and anxiety and weight loss resistance and histamine reactions and hormone imbalances. The LPS can be present without dramatic digestive symptoms. And that's why looking at your symptoms beyond surface level is really, really important to help you get to the root cause. And that's why gut testing can be a key to unlocking root cause drivers for you and your symptoms. So let's talk a little bit about too, when it comes to all of this detoxification and detox, because I think a lot of us misunderstand what detox is. Like we think of it as like a 3-day cleanse, and because that's what we've been marketed to, right? But it is truly a 24/7 physiological process. Your body relies on 3 major symptoms to clear waste and toxins, which is the liver, the lymphatic system, and the kidneys. And these systems work in partnership with, you guessed it right, the gut. And so if your gut is producing more toxins because of imbalances with LPS or fungus or parasites or other imbalances of bacteria in the gut, your detox organs have to process all of that. And often these systems become overwhelmed and detox slows down. So let's talk about some just simply gut-derived toxins, and then also another major driver that I find, which is also mycotoxins or mold toxins. So gut-related toxins would be things like estrogen metabolites not being broken down properly and reabsorbed, bacterial endotoxins like LPS, ammonia, and other metabolic waste, and fungal toxins that can colonize in the gut, like candida. And when we have leaky gut as well, these toxins just don't stay contained to the gut. They enter circulation. And again, they have to be dealt with by the liver, the lymph, and the kidneys. And this puts a huge demand on the body, and why many of us suffer from a higher toxic load because our bodies simply can't handle all the demands that we're trying to give us, especially when the gut is imbalanced. And then we have all these other toxins that we're coming in contact with on a daily basis. So I mentioned mold toxins or mycotoxins because they disrupt this delicate ecosystem in our gut big time. And it's something I see often in my practice. So mycotoxins disrupt the following. They inhibit phase 1 and phase 2 liver detox. They disrupt bile production and bile flow, which is a key driver of detoxification and even nutrient absorption. They increase oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction. They suppress your immune surveillance. We need that immune surveillance to take care of things like fungus and parasites and bacteria, right? Like our body is obviously fighting these things all the time, but mycotoxins severely suppress that. They also interfere with hormone signaling and clearance. So, again, going back to how all of this is connected to the hormones and detox and the gut, mold is a key driver to this disruption. And that's why people who have mold issues often have things like estrogen dominance, chemical sensitivities, histamine reactions, severe fatigue, and brain fog. And this is important because a lot of times, again, I see imbalances in people with their gut, but the true root cause driver is that mold toxicity interfering with these processes of how the gut is influenced by the immune system and by bile production and by liver detoxification and how hormone signaling is involved in all of this as well. And so if we can't detox from the bile, for example, like I said, mold disrupts the bile. Bile is our detox superhighway. It is literally like our river of toxins. It helps take toxins out of the body and basically package them up, and we eliminate them through the bowels. So the bile is how the liver packages up excess hormones, fat soluble toxins, which are like mycotoxins, and other microbial byproducts. And again, it delivers them for elimination through the gut. But if this bile flow is impaired due to inflammation or mold toxins or infections or gallbladder dysfunction, toxins don't exit and they just get dumped back into the gut. And when bile flow is stopped up, this is a major route to constipation. But this is also how people get stuck in a loop of toxicity because these toxins are then reabsorbed. So the loop is basically like your gut is dysfunctional. You have a higher toxic load from either LPS, which is like the endotoxins from your gut bacteria or other byproducts of imbalances in your gut, other bad bacteria, fungus, parasites. But then also we have a high toxic load from maybe mold toxins or maybe other environmental toxins. But then we also have impaired detox because of how all of this disrupts our detox pathways. And so then these toxins recirculate and they continue to worsen symptoms and further toxicity, which then further drives leaky gut and inflammation. And so that is why healing your gut microbiome is so key, because our true healing starts when we are able to heal the gut and properly detox and restore that gut lining integrity, support our bile flow, open our drainage pathways, and then we can start to address that toxin load. But as you can see, if the gut isn't a part of that process of detoxification, we get stuck in a loop of toxicity. Okay, so I hope you learned a lot about all of this, but you're probably thinking, what can I do about all of this, Jess? And my answer is always get answers. Don't guess. And that's why in my practice, I offer stool testing. We look for things like LPS, SIBO markers, histamine producers, hydrogen producers, bacteria, parasites, estrogen, recycling patterns. We also look at mold testing, mycotoxin testing, functional blood panels, which looks at your detox pathways, kidney, lymph, liver function, hormone testing to really know what is going on with your hormones, and even neurotransmitter testing because of that gut-brain axis. For most of my new clients, I like running a stool test and a mycotoxin test as well as a blood panel because this gives us a full overview of toxins that drive symptoms as well as detoxification, again, liver, thyroid function, and microbiome balance. Additionally, beyond testing, there's a few things you can start doing today at home to support your body. And one thing, and it sounds so simple, and that's chewing your food. So many of us eat in a rush state. We're not taking the time to chew our food. And when we eat our food and we chew our food, we actually aid in proper digestion and stomach acid production. And stomach acid is a key player in helping keeping your gut pathogens in balance because of how they neutralize pathogens, but also helping us properly digest our food and break down our food. If we don't have proper stomach acid production and we're not chewing our food properly, we often have a buildup of undigested food or hard to digest food in our gut, and it sits there and ferments. And this creates problems. This creates dysbiosis. This allows pathogens and toxins to run wild. And so chewing is foundational to gut health. Some other things that would be supportive are things like fermented foods. One study showed that eating fermented foods actually helped depression symptoms. So eating fermented foods are really amazing for supporting microbial balance. And if you're dealing with mood imbalances, fermented foods can be really helpful. Additionally, things like bitter foods can support bile flow, which helps those toxins eliminate properly and also support healthy bowel movements. So if you struggle with constipation, this is a big one, is supporting bile flow, but also things like prebiotic foods, which can help your gut. Prebiotic foods are things like beans, garlic, onion, leeks, burdock root, green bananas. I love to grab the greenest bananas at the grocery store, and then I chop them up. I put them in a freezer bag and I freeze them. And then when I make smoothies, I just add them to smoothies. And it is an amazing way to get prebiotics and so cheap too. So honestly, like doing these small steps that I've outlined here can make a huge long-term impact on your gut health by just adding in those bitter foods, properly chewing your foods, eating prebiotic foods, eating fermented foods can all help your gut microbiome balance. But again, if you're done doing this by yourself and you've been struggling for years with chronic health issues, it's important that you get answers. And in my practice, I believe that you deserve answers. And that is why I work with clients all over the world and all over the US in my practice at Elevated Functional Health to support them via advanced functional lab testing to find root causes to gut infections and inflammation and mood imbalances and toxicity that they're feeling. I have a lot of clients who have complex cases or long-standing chronic symptoms, and they want answers. And that's what I do in my practice. I find those answers for them through lab testing. And then from there, I build a personalized root cause roadmap. So we know exactly what your body needs based on your labs and your symptoms. And then we go through the process of supporting your body in a specific order to help you truly heal and transform. I support clients with things like nutrition, lifestyle, detox, and supplement recommendations, as well as take a holistic approach to healing the gut with nervous system support as well. So if you're ready to explore lab testing or working with me one-on-one, I would check out the show notes below so you can book a free one-on-one call with me to learn more. I hope you enjoyed this episode on the gut microbiome and how it impacts your hormones, your mood, and your detox pathways, and learning how the microbiome is truly a master regulator of your brain chemistry and your detox capacity and your hormone signaling. And until next time, I hope you start taking some of those small steps that I outlined below, or even saying yes to yourself by signing up for a free call with me. So you can start not only shifting yourself, but when you heal your body, it starts creating a ripple effect to helping shift our culture from sickness to health. And that is the mission of the Body Ethos Podcast. Thank you so much. And I hope you guys have a great day.